I was going to say, this is something you were talking about before about Kvothe's self-esteem. There's a
that's what I was going to bring up too.
Yeah, I was going to say huge reveal, which totally backs up your claim about that, where he's saying, he almost asked her to come with him. What could I say? Come away with me, stay with me, come to university. And I mean, go as far as, what could I offer? Nothing. Anything I said would sound foolish, a child's fantasy. He's always doing that to himself, man, where he's always like, well, what can I offer? And then he's so scared of looking foolish. And many times, he uses that with the masters, where he's like, well, I can't say I'm here for the Chandrian because they're going to look at me like I'm an idiot. He's probably not wrong about that. There might be a few that wouldn't, but there's enough that would, that it could fuck up his, entrance to the university. But in this sense, I mean, it's definitely just that lack of self-esteem, which who knows if we'll get it back, right? I mean, because
what's amazing is he says all that, and he's ready to express his undying love with her immediately. I mean, this dude falls
he just met her,
head over heels fucking right off the bat. Like, Jesus Christ, dude, fucking take a breath. But, like, he's immediately in love with her, and he's ready to spill the beans right off the bat, and the super faux pas. Don't fucking tell somebody you love them the first time you fucking meet him, you weirdo. But he's about to do it, but he doesn't think like, nah, I shouldn't tell her that because I've only known her for 30 seconds. He's like, I'm not worth it. I have nothing to offer her. But then what's interesting is, we'll come upon it here in the next couple chapters, but she's like the total opposite. She's like, hey, come with me. Like, you teach this guy how to play music, and, we'll be bums together. We'll just fucking, she's clearly willing to just fucking roll out with this dude in his current state, in his current, condition. She's not expecting him to be some rich dude. She's willing to be like, be with me. I'll run game on these dudes. I'll get us with money. We'll make it. We'll figure it out. You'll teach him how to play music. We'll work it out. We'll figure something out. She's completely down. Completely down. And then, but in his mind, he's like, I'm a piece of shit. I have nothing to offer. I can't do anything for a woman. Like, yeah, his self-esteem after Tarbean is only in the aspect of being a provider, being a husband figure. In that sense, his self-esteem is completely shot.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because even a little bit before what you're talking about, where Denna even says, "What's it like to know where you're going?" So she's kind of like, she's looking at him like he's kind of got his shit together, at least compared to her, because I love she's fun to talk to. Obviously, we're not talking to her, but in the book where it's like, well, where am I going? Because I don't know. You tell me. Like, and just she's like playing that out, where she is leaving it more open, and he's just not. He just didn't pick up on the hints, man.
No, not at all. It's just his self-esteem. It's not there.
Well, but even like when you said liar, or when she said liar, I took that as she's flirting with him. She's assuming he's, and he just doesn't. He just looks away.
She's 100% flirting with him, and even like when he like looks over at her, when in the previous chapter when he just looks over, like she smiles and waves at him, and he just immediately turns his head. He's like that prototypical shy, awkward high school boy that just doesn't know how to talk to women yet.
Wearing a cloak on top of it all.
Yeah, because he's a huge fucking nerd. So, like it's understandable. I mean, he thinks his cloak is bad as fuck, but it's understandable that he should not go talk to girls while he's wearing that nerdy ass cloak. Like, dude, fucking put on a damn suit or something, man.
If Denna
fucking
had just
suit up, dude, you're just wearing this cloak, looking like a fucking crazy person.
If Denna had just made fun of him and been like, nice Nice cloak, dude.
He would have
changed Kvothe's game.
He would have broke apart.
Like, really?
If she made fun of his cloak, that dude would have never recovered. He wouldn't have made it to the university. He would have hung himself right there.
Oh, Jesus.
If she would have done it, been sarcastic about it, Kvothe would have never picked up on it and been total.
I'm joking, yeah.
But as far as that goes, it's not that his confidence lacks in any aspect except with her. I know we've talked about it before, but he doesn't have a problem with confidence in any other situation. Look at him in the next few chapters when he gets to university. And,
man, he's fine with people double, triple his age.
Even
ran
other
roughshod
girls.
over fucking Tarbean to get out of there. Perfectly fine intermingling in the group, playing his music. He's like, I'm a bad motherfucking dude when I play music. Like everything.
Well, when it comes
his sympathy dealing with him, like he's unbelievably confident. He's arrogant. But in this one area, Tarbean has completely fucked up his confidence.
So I think
he does not see himself as a provider.
Maybe this does speak to what you were kind of alluding to with Denna. Maybe she does see into him. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe he can sense it, and it puts him on his feet. I mean, we know he's in love with her, and that's going to be a big part of it. But
I think she's deeply in love with him. So I think, if he could sense it, he would sense that she's she's at least as madly in love with him as he is with her.
What I mean is, perhaps that puts him on his heels. Like he's being
her abilities and her prowess.
Yeah, and maybe
throws him off kilter. But he's like that with all the girls. Like he doesn't think Fella likes him, and Fella's clearly in love with him in the the first book. Yeah. He doesn't sense it there. Like Devi offers to sleep with him, and he just ignores the offer. Like, he does not see himself in that capacity.
Right, but he's not like. Not like with Denna. He's even with Fella, when Fella kind of throws herself at him to some extent. He's not awkward about it. He just kind of turns it down because he's in love with Denna at that point.
Yeah, but he's not awkward with Denna either. Like he's perfectly comfortable. Like in this situation, they're having a great night. This would be the opportune time not to be like, I'm fucking head over heels in love with you, weirdo, but to be like, hey, you're pretty fucking cool. We should hang out.
Or he could make somewhat of a move.
Yeah.
He could make a sexual move at
not
some
express
point.
your undying love to someone the first day you meet him, but he could have made a move, but he doesn't. But like with Denna, the difference I think is with Denna, he clearly wants her. With Fella, he thinks she's attractive, but he's not into Fella. With Devi, he thinks she's cute, but he's not into Devi. He's into Denna, and that's like the kind of the difference. But with all three of them, he could have made a move on all three of them.
Well,
it's like the idea of it is absurd to him.
Well, and what's interesting about what ends up coming up with Denna is he thinks about it. He just can't even come close to dealing, because he considers, what if she shut me down? How would I ever live my life after that? I couldn't he can't allow her to see him like she sees the dudes that he has seen her, run roughshod over.
I think
not at
there's
this
an
point,
important
but
point.
going forward, that also gets added in. That gets layered in. Yeah,
I'm saying that because we're talking about Fella and these other examples.
I got you. Yeah,
but
so I think we ought to bring up an important point that's obvious, but Denna is Kvothe's weakness. More than his arrogance, more than his anger, Denna's his weakness, his biggest weakness anyway.
Yeah, and his biggest vulnerability. I don't know if I would say weakness, but vulnerability, yeah. Yeah, if you were going to go after Kvothe and not go after him directly. Yeah, exactly. If you were going to go after Kvothe and not go after him directly, Denna would be the biggest vulnerability, followed by Will and Sim and Manette and then Trappist and all those guys. He's she's the biggest one.
And it's also one of those things that it's so precious to him that he doesn't really talk about, how he feels for her with even Will and Sim. He kind of talks around it, but he doesn't talk about it, in an accurate sense, So that's one of his traits. He can't let people all the way in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's clearly they're well aware that he's deeply in love with her. He's in denial.
I was going to say they see it through observation, and they're also he's got a weird thing about emotions between individuals. He just can't see it while they can, and they point it out repeatedly to him. It's a really it's a really interesting way to write the character, man, because he's so high in so many abilities, and then you chop him off in these types of
and Denna is so fucking similar.
Yeah.
Denna, when she's drugged up, or she every now and again tells him hey, you can make a little bit of a move, she's like, I appreciate that you give me my space, but you don't have to give me that much fucking space. They're very similar in the fact that they don't see what the other person sees. But there's a lot of criticism over the way Rothfuss wrote Denna. They're she does, a lot of women are she doesn't seem very realistic. She's not like any girl I've ever met. I 100% disagree, because I've met a lot of women that are very much like Denna. Now, I'm probably hanging in a different sort of women than these girls are hanging out with.
I'm not
no, not necessarily prostitutes, but you hang around some girls swinging on a pole every now and again, you're gonna run into some fucking Dennas. there's some girls in that realm that are very much like that, and she rings very true to me, and she rings very true to 20-year-old dudes hanging in a strip club. Denna rings, she's a more sophisticated, more intelligent, got her shit more together, but she's got these kind of broken qualities to her. There's something clearly fucked up has happened to lead her down this path that she's on, but she seems realistic to me.
What's the criticism?
That she's not realistic, that they don't know other girls that act like Denna or that are like her, but she seems realistic to me.
I'm saying she seems very realistic to me, and while I might not be able to get into any girl's head, very much so seems like Denna. A lot of girls I've met seem like Denna.
Yeah,
not just strippers.
I agree as well. She's an independent type of woman, is the way she reads to me. She doesn't have a support system. So she's
but at the same time she's self-conscious. She is not confident in the way that she portrays herself to Kvothe. It rings true, Even
got her guard up, ready to fucking dip out at a moment's notice. I've met so many girls like that. She rings very true to me, but there is a lot of people I don't think that have hung around the type of girl that is like that. They don't. They don't see it, and I 100% see. Makes me think that Rothfuss was hanging out at fucking strip clubs a lot when he was writing this book.
I will say I find it surprising. It surprised me when you said it, that that's a big critique that people have, and I get people have critiques about way certain things are written, and I can understand that because everybody's different, everybody has their own perspective, but that is not something that would have occurred to me. That is a surprising thing for me to hear, having read these books.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I knew you guys wouldn't see Denna that way, but so many people do, and I think that's where I think it's what experiences have you lived through, and what have you seen in your life? I think it's just one of those kind of things where if you haven't ran into a Denna before, she's gonna seem fucking weird, but if you've ran into a lot of Dennas before, she seems exactly like those, except for a little bit, maybe better education, a little more sophisticated.
Hey, I bet Rothfuss was crushing it at the strip clubs, telling those strippers how he's writing a book.
Yeah.
Hey, you want me in my book? I bet he was crushing it.
So that's where he came up with Shandy. Shandy's dance, man.
What if?
I'm telling you, I'm in love with the stripper.
What if Rothfuss is Ambrose? Huh?
Yeah.
What if that's his background, and he's just he's a self-loathing noble?
Yeah, he's definitely not. But yeah,
I like experimenting.
He's more of a manette, like was in college for like 7 years or something along those lines. He's more of a manette figure than with his big wizard beard and
cloak.
Yeah, he's rocking a cloak in college. But I think that probably, yeah. I don't have anything. That was the last kind of point I wanted to bring up towards this chapter. I don't know if you guys got any last words on it.
No, I mean there is one little like note that maybe ties into what we were saying about how they are similar. I like, and this comes across a few times, or we get this sense, but Kvothe says, I sense that there were things she would rather not talk about, and by the way she avoided questioning me, I think she guessed the same. And we spoke of ourselves instead, of fond imaginings and possible things. So we get that sense quite a bit, where, and you mentioned that as well, where she's like, every now and then you can make a little bit of a move, they're very like respectful of one another, and they read each other really, really well. They read each other's like vibe really, really well. Yeah, I don't know. That particular quote is meaningful here in their first meeting, their first, conversation, because that feeling kind of lasts throughout.
Yeah, I love the beginning to 34 when he's like, his name was Jazin, and he had paid Rowan for passage to Annalyn. He had an easy manner and an honest smile. He seemed an earnest man. I did not like him.
That's
so great.
Yeah, that's great. He's got a knack for those little twists. Where like what?
If it's not clear for the audience, I'm a big fan of deadpan humor.
Yeah.
Most of my jokes are delivered in a deadpan manner, and Rothfuss is really good about writing deadpan humor. He does it here. He also does it in the so I wasn't gonna I couldn't go see Scarpy. I couldn't take the risk, and then I was entering the bar to see Scarpy. So like he does a really good job of writing deadpan humor into the story.
Yeah, it's great. I love those little moments. They're nice, and it's very abrupt, and the abruptness of it is what lends more emotion to it. But yeah, he goes right into the reason.
Yeah, and Kvothe's hatred for, you almost hate Jazin right with him, because he's always sitting next to Denna and moving in, and you could just sense it as a man. This girl that you're after, and this son of a bitch comes up and starts moving in on her, and she's accepting it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's so great after the last chapter. I just feel like I'm totally like, yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck this dude. Who's this dude?
Who's he think he is?
See, I read it and I'm like, God damn it, Kvothe, like if you're trying to get friend zoned, this is how you get friend zoned.
True.
You act like a little
go sit in the back of the carriage and
petulant child because she's talking to some other dude that has bigger balls than you, that's willing to fucking, say the things he's not willing to say, and he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to not take any risk, and he wants all the reward, but he's not willing to risk anything to get the reward. And Jazin is like, fuck that, I'm gonna fucking take the risk. If you're not gonna fucking do it, I'm gonna do it. And so, like, if you want to get friend zone, that's how you get friend zone.
Let's not sidestep the fact that Kvothe's being a little bitch and like sulking in the back, like letting it all happen. If you got to go after what you want. There's no
100%, man.
Not going to gain anything
risk,
by sulking.
Man. Like I get it. He's 15 years old, coming out of Tarpean, so like, yeah, I get it. I understand, but he's still like, I haven't experienced those things. I didn't live through those things. I'm just reading about them, and I'm like, nah, man. Yeah, you want to get a girl, you got to put your nuts on the line a little bit. You can't just sit back and hope that they read your non-existent signals.
Well, not only that, but us as readers, knowing Kvothe, who he is, what he's capable of, how much more of a man he is than this Jazan guy. It's almost frustrating.
And Denna knows it too. I mean, Denna's fully aware of this. Like, even, when Jazan and her are writing together, what's she doing? She's like, hey, maybe Kvothe could teach you how to play that fucking lute you're carrying around.
Yeah.
Like, she sees it. Kvothe is just, he's not there yet. He's got to meet Florian to get a little piece of that out of him, to bring him out of that state a little bit, to realize he's not a fucking child and doesn't need to be walking like a deer in headlights around women.
Yeah, give him that instinctual testosterone kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got to go through puberty.
Something. It's something.
Still hair on them balls.
Yeah. He's yeah.
He's still acting like grade school.
It is frustrating to read.
It's super frustrating. But what kills me is it's more understandable that Denna doesn't realize that Kvothe is into her than it is the other way around. Like, because he doesn't say anything. He plays off his compliments as jokes, as being way over the top, and it's like it's like playing a game with her. He rarely shoots her straight, and then even when she gives him the signals and says, "Hey, you could fucking, make a little extra move," he doesn't make the extra move. So it's more understandable that she doesn't realize how into her he is, but it's completely not understandable that he doesn't see it, because she fucking tells him explicitly.
Yeah.
Like, make a fucking move, dude. Not here. But
no, when they're before.
But later on, she makes it much more clear that she's into him, and so his ability to not read the signals is very fucking frustrating. Hers is frustrating, but more understandable.
Well, it's especially, and when he does the Bill Cosby on her, she reveals her feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, he roofied her, fucking let her in, walked her straight into it.
You're right, though. That's when she really does kind of lay it all on the line, is when she's stoned. Right before he goes and kills the Dracus.
Now, obviously, he didn't go through with the Bill Cosby, because he even says it would be a real shitty, a bastardly thing to do.
Yeah, he also doesn't drug her.
Yeah.
She drugs herself. Okay, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost the same thing. Then moving into 35, there's not a ton to say, because it's super short. He learns that he's not as wise about the world as he believes, through kind of learning about the why she would give him the money and not Rowan. And so he kind of learns that he's not as world wise as he thought he was. But the biggest thing that I get out of this is, one, he sees Denna when he stops looking, which is always the case. It's a theme that's going to play throughout. He just finally like, all right, well, can't find her. So then he turns and there she is.
Standing right there.
The other aspect of that is, Denna, again, she makes it clear, like, hey, fucking come with me, man. Go with me to Annalyn. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
It's insane because he just thought this. He's like, nah, I'll seem like an idiot. And then she brings it up, and he's like, for a half second. But he's like, nah, I got the university. I can't do it. Can't do it.
Yep, she actually says, hey, I talked to Jazan. He's into it.
Yeah, it made it sound like a threesome.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's what caught me myself off guard. I stopped talking about it.
No, you're right. It's great how she mentions, because she's like, yeah, I told him you could teach him how to play that lute, which is great. You're like, damn, dude, she's down, bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's cool, man.
She is.
She's into it.
Put it like that.
Classic. For you young folks, a lot of these references are Seinfeld references. You're missing. Go back through.
Yeah.
Well, we had a few "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" references
That's
just
true.
in this episode. But yeah, that's kind of what I got out of the chapter. He does kind of double back to "We rue our travelers," so he talks more about that, which he's following what he should be doing. But yeah, we get that back and forth with Denna that kind of never really goes away.
And the last thing I'll mention on it is when he's like, "I'll never see her again." That's another one of those points where you could read that multiple different ways, because she is different when she comes back. So he never sees this girl again. He sees
Do you think
more hard and more sophisticated version
the multiple names
of her. Yeah,
she's
changing her names, and she's different. She seems older.
So,
Dan,
even when she
hold on 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
And she also, after he runs into her when he gets his talent pipes, and like it's been like half a year or give or take, and when he's like, "What happened to Denna? Why'd you change your name?" And she's like, "Oh, Denna." She's like, "I forgot that girl. That was an innocent girl. Seems so long ago." It seems like there's been a much bigger gap for her than for him. Like maybe she went into the Fae or something like that.
Do you think
it
she
does
was
not seem like it's the same gap for her as it is for him. Go ahead.
Do you think that she was a prostitute up to this point, like living that life?
According to, I believe it's Diak, yes.
Yeah, the guy in the
yeah, because he's known her. Yeah, like
Aeolian.
He's known her for at least another half a year more than at this point. Like he's known her for at least about a half a year by this point. By the time that Kvothe meets her here, Diak has known her for at least half a year as this fucking temptress.
So it's not that. It's not that she's now a hooker or whatever. It's something more substantial, or as substantial. Something has changed inside of Denna, and not just what she does for a living.
Well, I mean, when he mentions to Elodin, I believe he asked Elodin, "What would you think about a girl who changed her name?" He's like, whoa, you didn't do that, did you? Like he's like alarmed. So we start to realize that that's a big deal. There's power in that. So if she's just playing these different roles, she's also probably hurting herself, holding herself back, or hiding from something.
Or she doesn't know who she is, or she's dipping in and out of the Fae, and there's many different aspects of Denna to speculate on. It's hard to pin down exactly what it is, but there's something to do with her and the moon. She's very similar to the moon as far as like Iax's story. There's many mentions of the constant mentions, or as Tim would say, consistent mentions of her in regards to the moon.
It's even mentioned in
there's
these
mentions
chapters we covered.
Yeah, there's mentions of her towards Yillish, to the Yillish. There's mentions that would make it seem like maybe she's going in and out of the Fae. That she
does seem to dabble quite a bit in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't seem like she knows herself.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, 100%. And she seems to be, I don't want to say half measured, but she seems to be, again, dabbling in so many of these different things, I guess trying to find herself.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, going back to saying you've never met a woman like that. I've met many, many women like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I've met many women like that are constantly thinking, well, I could do this, or this. They're just very artistic types typically.
Yeah.
Or maybe autistic.
And she's also, beyond trying to find herself, like I don't even know kind of where I was going to go with it. But there's something more to her than just the surface, and her ring too. Like there's,
Yeah.
she's got a ring. There's something to that, and we don't really understand exactly what it is. Is it magical? Is it just a family heirloom? But there's something, and it seems like, she's probably been raped from her when Kvothe eavesdrops on her talking. She rescues a girl in the second book when he's with Mayor Alvaron. She rescues a girl from getting raped. She pulls out a knife and Kvothe is watching this scene from the top of the rooftop. She protects this girl and saves her from getting raped. And through this story, it sounds like that she had a similar kind of trajectory where she left her family, thought it was going to be one thing, turned out like she ended up getting, raped, and ended up going the prostitute route. And so she either grew up in a family where she learned sophistication, where she could mingle among the top echelon of people, or she made arrangements where she was able to learn these things from other people and learn these skills. But there's something going on with her. She's either from nobility, has learned from nobility, was around nobility, or she was taught how to mingle with nobility, because she clearly can.
So do you think that she might mirror Kvothe's mom in, I'm sorry, what's the Virgin
Arladin?
Mother's, no, the Virgin Mother's Periel Poontang?
Poontang Periel?
Denna,
Poontang?
Denna, Kvothe's mom, Periel Poontang. The similarities between them.
I see none between Periel. I don't see anything that resembles Denna with Periel, but there possibly could be similarities with Arladin and Natalia Lackless and Kvothe and Denna. It could be that Denna came from a noble family, and maybe she was like promised to some dude she didn't want to marry, or she just didn't like that lifestyle, and she escaped. But instead of Kvothe being there to free her from that shit, she went her own route, and some terrible shit happened to her.
Well,
she ended up where she is.
There are other rumors of Periel Poontang were that she was a whore.
Oh, yeah, in that respect. Yeah, but outside of that, just one reference. Like, I mean, we don't know enough about Periel to comment on her personality and stuff. Like, I don't see anything that I think like Denna with her.
I was thinking about this, going back to the chapter. I was thinking about this, how this ends. On the first read through, you're left with some hope here that he's going to the university, yes, but he knows where she's going to be. Now, you don't know that he's never going to, he's going to have so much trouble finding her time and again and time and again. But you're left with a little hope there. And then that kind of, in a way, gets dashed when he says, I'll never see her again. But obviously, you don't know if that's definite or not. It's just, I'm remembering back to my first read through and where this put me in that place. And I remember there's some hope there because he has this intense love interest. You feel like it's not going to just go away, right?
Well, what's interesting is you get this introduction to Denna, and he doesn't remark on it. It's not like he goes to an interlude and brings her up. It's just like, she was there and I hung out with her. Same way as he introduces Rowan and his wife and all the people. Like, he just introduces her without any kind of big preamble. Then before he introduces her the next time, there's a massive preamble.
I thought
he stops the story and is like, and remember, there's a girl, and I'm gonna get to her, and then he goes back in the story, and then when he brings her up again, then he can't get the words right. He's trying to describe her, like, so he's multiple times. The second time he runs into Denna, he makes a huge to do about it, but this time he doesn't at all.
I thought he did that in the first few chapters. He didn't.
Not about this. Like, we don't know this is the girl. At this point in the story, if you're reading this for the first time, you do not know this is the girl.
All right. But you know he has a whole... Yeah. All right.
And you don't... I mean, you know, you might be able to guess it, but because he makes no to-do about it... that's why I think he makes no to-do about it, is because Rothfuss doesn't want to fucking give it away.
Yeah.
Because he's going to make a huge deal out of it. But if you're not just taking it as Rothfuss wrote it that way for a reason... then the other thing to think about is, you know, it's possible that Denna's different in this meeting versus the next meeting. There's something different about her. And it seems like there's something different about her.
We do get little pieces of sympathetic clock, Yillish time, calendar, like when he's fucking with people showing up late. They're subtle. They don't really go into the details, but they're little world building things. Because I don't think we've heard much about Yillish up to this point. Have we?
Yeah, it's me. That's another one he peppers in. Like, I actually, when I was coming across it, I looked up how many times it's mentioned, and it's mentioned, you know, 3, 4, maybe 5 times before that, but it's not. It's always something similar where it's just kind of mentioned without any like diving into Yill or anything. So what it brings to mind is like he brings up Yill and subtly brings up parts of their culture and Yillish knots and things along those lines where I think there's something they play some kind of important role. There's a reason he repeatedly mentions the Yill and the Yillish knots and that kind of stuff. He repeatedly mentions them throughout both books. That makes you think that there's going to be something important. Because it's not like he's like, June Pui and June Pui and June Pui and June Pui. It's always Yill.
Well, and interesting, I mean, they talk about how they tell time differently, how their calendar is different. Like you said, Yillish knots. I don't know. It almost seems like a mathematical, geometric, sort of different viewpoint of how to approach the world. I like that. I mean, it just builds the world out even further. It broadens, you know, when you have this idea of there's other places in the world that live so differently. It's great. I mean, it just broadens the world in itself.
Yeah, and I always, what I think the important role that Yill's going to play in is kind of like, you know, where we start to go towards the end. I think, you know, with the Denna talking about the written form of magic, tying Yillish knots in her hair, Kvothe learning Yillish knots, and the box, when the Lackless box, him feeling like he felt like that it might have been something like Yillish knots. I think that is why it is interspersed so much through the books, is that's the important role, is Yillish knots and the magical aspect of it, I think, are going to play an important role.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be like a puzzle of sorts. Like he's going to solve a puzzle through something he learns or something like that in that regard, which is cool. You know, it's again, it's sort of building the world out, and it's I've always liked that he does, I guess call it magic, that it's on these different surfaces, these different sort of levels of where there's sympathy and wood that has certain capabilities. There's these strange things that are capable in the Fae, and you know, with the Kvothe, and these different applications of what seems to be magical.
Yeah, so he does a great job.
Sorry,
I was going to say he does a good job of building on itself throughout the whole thing. We never have that whole pie. There's always more and more pieces, and I think, you know, like you're saying, book 3 is going to be great because, you know, we still have all these, you know, not just about the wood, about Yillish magic, all these things that we're going to get to learn in 3.
With the Yill, though, it seems like he's funneling things down a specific path, because it starts out like, you know, they're just different, they're clocks and da-da-da, and then it starts tying into the knots, and then to the box. Feels like he feels like if he knew how to read Yillish knots, he'd be able to, you know, understand what the what he was feeling on that box, and then he goes and studies Yillish knots, and then he sees it on Denna's hair. So it feels like it's funneling us down into the Yillish knots are going to be the important aspect of it.
Yeah, there's something really important about that box that's in Kvothe's room. No question about that.
Yeah, and I think once he understands how to read Yillish knots and he can really learn it, I think that's going to play a significant role in his being able to open the Lackless box.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And then, once, the next big part in this chapter is him going to the archives, and he meets Fella right off the bat. And as far as Fella's concerned, it was a young woman sitting behind the desk. She was strikingly beautiful with long, dark hair and clear, bright eyes, a notable improvement over Ambrose, to be sure. What's amazing is if you probably ask 10 people what Fella looks like, you're probably going to get 10 different answers, because he does not fucking just lay it out like Fella is 5'4", dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin, da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, he doesn't do that. He just gives a very broad, very limited information on her and just lets you take strikingly beautiful and just build whatever your head is going to build with that limited information.
I know exactly what she looks like. No question in my mind.
I think of like a woman from Spain, an extremely sexy Spanish woman is what I picture in my head, with dark hair and like darker skin, like tan, super tan, like kind of Italian, Spanish, that kind
olive
Sicilian, yeah, like olive skin.
I don't know why, but my vision was very similar to that.
Mine is similar, but not necessarily as dark skin. I almost saw it as like kind of more fair skin, but yeah, she seems. There are scenes where she sounds shapely. Where Kvothe shows up at her place. It's interesting how he describes her as compared to Denna, because he does always. It's almost like an admittance that Fella's beautiful. It's not like he dives into it. He just says she's beautiful, and like she always, everybody always turns their head to look at her, and she's clearly like the hottest chick at the university. But when he describes Denna, it's much more. He's all romanced and everything. Like he's all in. But with Fella, he doesn't take it there. Except like when he's in the plumb bob, he just says things that he would say if he's like wasted or whatever. But
I'd pay you to fucking see you naked.
Yeah.
I'll give you everything I own.
That's so great. It's really nice to see him just like go there.
Yeah, and like Sim says I shouldn't, but Sim doesn't know shit about women. So if you think it's okay, yeah, it's a fucking great scene. But usually it's always like he's focused on something else, and then it's after the fact where he's like, well, like in here, he's like, you could see how much I wanted to be in the archives, that I was standing, 6 inches away from some hot ass girl and didn't think fucking two things about it.
Yeah, that's the interest. That's why it reads so interesting to me, because there's clearly like a sexual chemistry, but it seems to be all on Fella's side. You know what I'm saying? Like she's always like subtly coming on to him, and he's an idiot. He's like a stone wall to it.
Well, and I don't think it's that he's not interested. I think he's it goes to that lack of self-confidence where like he's got such a self-esteem problem that the idea that she's actually hitting on him and that she's actually into him is just so absurd that he doesn't even entertain the thought that he has a chance.
So,
because even when they're like, hey, you could probably pick up Fella, and he's like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Like, that girl didn't fucking, why would she want to be with me? And it's like, well, she clearly fucking does, dude.
Yeah, here's all the signs. And he's just like, well, that's this. And then he has a reason for all of them. And it's like, dude, you are fucking blind as shit. This is pathological, man. And that's what you're saying. It is. He thinks he's gutter trash.
Bring up that about his lack of self-confidence a lot. And it's evident. I'm not questioning the evidence of it, but I want to know what you think it stems from. In Kvothe.
Simon Tarbian.
Yeah.
I think, like we talked about in the last episode when, he's coming out of Tarbian and he's like, he had that instinct to ask Denna to run away with him. And then he was like, shit, what do I have? It's like, I got nothing. I can't fucking do anything for her. I can't provide for her. He's fucking broke. Like, I mean, you have to have a very specific type of personality to be broke with no job, no prospects, and to still be like, badass women should want me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there are guys that have a ton of money and a ton of prospects, and they still think the idea that a hot girl would want them is preposterous. So, like, it's understandable that a broke fucking dude that's been living in the fucking streets for 3 years is not going to have that kind of fucking self-esteem. But, that's what it comes down to. I mean, you see fucking garbage human beings that are with very, very nice and attractive and quality women, even though they're garbage human beings, purely just based off of their self-confidence.
Yep.
It's an interesting... I've always found it to be an interesting dichotomy because, and I know we've talked about this, but because he did actually have a good upbringing, but then it's all wiped away, and then he has that stretch of time where where he still defines himself for such a long period as gutter trash, and however you want to put that,
That's why it doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, he's got confidence in so many areas, or just like a natural instinct for being, a solid person, a driven person, somebody who can get things done. That his lack of confidence with women is kind of a conundrum to me.
It's a weird, to a degree. It feels like a compartmentalization, or like where he has confidence in his abilities. He knows what his abilities are. He knows what he's been capable of doing. But then it's like he has this emotional sort of switch where they don't coexist. It's like, because he's there in the bar. I mean, he's there in Noir where he's just, he's in a very dark place, man. And there's glimmers where he gets out of it, or with Denna, I don't know if getting out of it is the right way to look at it, but he has this connection with her, but it seems like that's all he has room for.
I mean, keep in mind, he's like 15. Like, I mean, I there's not a lot of 15-year-old kids that are fucking walking around with a lot of fucking swagger. Just fucking pick up fucking any woman. And if you, like, he had it. He had that fucking swagger when he was 11, 12-year-old kid with his fucking family. There was no fucking problems. It was 3 years in Tarbian created problems. If it did not create any kind of problems, that would be weird.
Well, so
to go and live on the streets for 3 years and to just bounce out of that thinking you're just gonna fucking be pulling dime pieces, like, no, that wouldn't make any sense.
Well, but so then he has it with Felurian, 100%. But then even I don't know. It's like it almost like ebbs and flows with him as well. And to some degree, although I guess the whole time he's on the road, well, yeah, I mean, when he's in Edemra too, he hooks up, but he doesn't have these like sort of. I feel like he doesn't have.
He was not confident in Edemra either, as far as hooking up. I mean,
he was. He was pretty confident. I
felt like
he was blown away by is like he was like when he was hooking up with Vachette. He didn't lack any confidence. He was, there's obviously the different cultures when she was very, more
forward,
matter of fact, let's fucking do it, like not a big deal. Whereas he's put some emotional connection to it, but like he was just more like she did not give a shit about all my skills that I had learned. Like he's sitting there trying to show her how fucking great he is, and she's just like, yeah, just fucking. Let's fucking go.
Let's just do it.
Get the show on the road, man.
Stop all the foreplay, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Although Penth,
that was
Penth was like, you have great anger, right? So she was like, we match well. Our anger works well. Yeah, and he did a sexual marathon just like he did with the redheaded chick at the bar after Felurian.
Yeah.
So it.
Yeah, that brings a little bit of his confidence out. Like once he meets Felurian, he becomes a little different. But even still, like he goes back to university, he's just basically doing one night stands.
Yeah,
he's not getting in relationships. He's still broken. He's a broken
that's
person.
what
he doesn't fully form back after his time in Tarbean.
That's what I'm kind of driving at. I mean, it's like he does it for sport. Yeah, and we all do. It's fun, right? I'm not saying there's not anything wrong with that, but he only has a deep connection with Denna.
I would never do that.
Jesus, but he only has the deep, like the emotional connection with Denna, and even that can't go far. Yeah, or there's the limitation that they always run into because they both have the same problems. It's
they're both broken. Neither one of them can make the first move. Neither one of them can risk being rejected, and so they're just they just live in this weird dynamic where we have to be tortured by being able to see what they can't see.
But I think that makes it so much more interesting, right? I mean, for readers, because there's the frustration, there's the like getting it close, but then not getting there. I mean, if it was just a freaking romance novel, it just ended in romance, it ends up kind of lame, right? I mean, you want something to root for, and then get frustrated by.
Yeah,
it's one of the most. He doesn't write it in like the typical romance trope, like will they, won't they, will they, won't they. Like, I mean, that's a typical fucking thing. It's more like you're not getting a real sense of that they're going to end. Well, they're not going to end up happily ever after because we know where he's at the bar. So it's more like, are they ever going to hook up, and then how's it going to end in a complete disaster is the way you're looking at it. So but there is that will they, won't they aspect to it, but it's not going to be one of those happily ever after fucking stories. It's going to end in disaster at some point, no matter what.
And if I can distinguish between the two, like it's obvious that Kvothe is in love with Denna, and that dynamic is different as far as his confidence goes than where he's at right now, with Fela and even with Devi. It may be that he's the things that we're seeing in him right now is a lack of experience. He's confident in a lot of areas of his life because he's got experience in sympathy. He understands all these things that he's learned from Aventhy or from his dad, but nobody's ever taught him about women. That's something that he's yet to learn, and he does kind of learn that with Felurian.
Yeah, it takes a while, but I
guess that's true too.
He grows through the two books.
Well, and it's not like with sympathy. I mean, there's laws there, and you manipulate those laws. I mean, it's not there's a lot of nuance and dealing with women.
But
and
if he can just learn the 7 words,
just
the 7 words is all he needs.
He already got him, man. He already learned them. He just fucking can't accept that he learned them.
Kvothe scours the bar for his Elohim, and he eventually finds her at the end of the chapter. Kvothe says only thing he could think was that she was beautiful. Dan, do you think that had something with some Yillish knots in her hair?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it did or not. It could have, but he didn't remark on her hair, so I don't know.
I just thought
any kind of indication there.
I just thought because he the way he phrased it was like all I could think was beautiful, and that just reminded me this time around of what you were saying, and then later on I believe in the second book when he says that she actually has that tied into her hair.
Yeah, no, it definitely stands out, but it's hard to say on that. I because there's no other clue or anything once you move into the next chapter, and you find, or then 2 chapters later, once you find out it's her, like it doesn't remark on her hair having braids, at least none that I remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it definitely sticks out. I mean, when you go back through it, like I definitely think that when I see it, I'm curious whether that's the case, but we don't know how long she's. I would assume that it's not. I would assume that she had to go to learn that kind of stuff. She had to go to Yale to be able to learn that kind of stuff. So, and she's not, she goes to Yale much later.
Okay.
That is definitely one thing that we find out in this group of chapters specifically, is that she's very knowledgeable. She knows a lot. She has a wide range of knowledge on a variety of different subjects. She surprises Kvothe quite a bit with her knowledge. And,
yeah, which I mean tells you a lot about her.
Well, it's also perfect for somebody like him, specifically like all her knowledge of theater and all these different plays. And he's always like, well, most people don't know that play, or most people don't, know this or that or whatever.
And if it's true how quickly she learned the Lay of Sir Savian off of hearing it 2.5 times, like she's got to be some kind of a savant like he is.
You guys don't memorize songs the second time you hear them?
No, not usually.
Huh.
Is that normal for
people? Normal people are not able to do that?
No, not normal people, Dan.
That's weird.
It is interesting that they are both, they both seem to have tremendous ear, and her especially, because he comments on it repeatedly about how outstanding her ear is.
Yeah, she parallels him in a lot of ways. She's knowledgeable on a lot of different things. She's able to mingle with many different sorts. She can kind of mix it up with anybody. She's not thrown off by being around nobility like Savoy or Ambrose, or hanging with Kvothe and Will and Sim, or hanging out with fucking Diok. She's able to, fucking mixing it up in the street. She's a chameleon like Kvothe. She can mix it up in any scenario. They're very, very similar. Which it makes me, there's a lot to question on that. Was she raised in a similar background? Because Kvothe is able to do those things for a very specific set of reasons. He grew up in a troop with a bunch of people teaching him a bunch of different things. And I'm curious whether she learned those growing up, or, if she left her family and she's living out on the streets, and she's, living a rough life and had a bunch of bad things happen to her. And then she had to pick up different skills, and she goes and hires people to teach her different things. I'm curious what the process was for her to get to that level. Was it just part of her upbringing, or was it out of necessity?
There's got to be something to do with her upbringing as far as the theater stuff goes, because as a young girl who has become a hooker, so to speak, those skills we see portrayed by how she picks up men, and I guess in that way, there could be some theatrical skill, but not knowledge of the theater itself.
But I mean, it's also how she knows how to act at court, like they say, right? Informal atmosphere. That seems to be something that has to be taught. You can't. They don't have television shows where you know what I mean, where you watch. It's like girls go to finishing school, right? So it seems like either she had someone in her family that somewhat like Kvothe's mother who taught him all these things, like she had someone she was growing up with, or she did have, I don't know, she strikes me as an orphan like Kvothe, mainly because she doesn't have family. We don't hear about family. But of course, again, we're in the dark about a lot of the details of her, especially her past.
Yeah.
She strikes me as a runaway. But
yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's tough to pin down one way or another. But we do know when she runs into that girl that she saves from getting raped, she tells her, I could introduce you to some people. We could put you in contact with some people who could teach you how to lose that accent, learn how to act with the upper echelon of society, so you could become courtesan instead of just a lowly street hooker. And so it lends some credence to the fact that she's had to learn these things because of her circumstances.
When she's talking,
because she's like explaining it that girl would need to do these things.
Yeah. So when she's giving her that choice, because she's basically giving her the choice, does she go as far as saying someone did this for me? I thought that was.
I don't remember. There's something like. There's some line why the girl asks her like why are you helping me?
Yeah, exactly.
And she gives because blah blah blah. I don't remember what it was. Well, obviously we'll come across it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it could have been something like that. Someone helped me out when I needed it. You're
right though. I mean that situation is one of the biggest pictures, maybe the biggest picture we get of her past and what she's made of. What she's made up of, because she's giving her this choice. And that's how we get an absolute clincher that she's definitely, having sex for money, or at least has, because when the girl's like, well, maybe, no, that's not how this works. She immediately cuts her off and is like, no, you're going to be giving it up. That's just how this works. So don't fool yourself, sort of situation. It's a pretty hard truth. Comes down like a hammer.
Yeah, man. That WAP, dude.
Okay.
The WAP comes down like a hammer.
I didn't really feel like that's
we hope so anyway.
Yes, we hope so.
Is that not what you were going with?
Not really. But there's a connection.
I misinterpreted it. I misinterpreted what you were saying.
But She is an interesting, very, very interesting, enigmatic character. And their back and forths I know we've talked about it plenty of times, but their back and forths are really, really interesting, and just the little dance they do where they the dance. Yeah, where they did. Yeah, where they they both kind of it's a lot of like joking around and not taking things seriously, and then every now and then it does get somewhat serious, and then one of them will pull back a little bit. It's really interesting what that also hints at for the two of them, in terms of like her own self-worth that she has, because she's got self-worth issues just like Kvothe.
The fact that they both act like they've never met each other before lends to that point, Tim. They both, at least Kvothe believes that she doesn't remember meeting him, and she plays right along.
Her reaction. I mean, we'll go into it, but yeah, her reaction is like someone who knows, she's seeing someone she hadn't seen in a long time. That's like, that's just one of those where it was another one where it's like, dude, this dude, man, his self-confidence problems are annoying as shit. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she must not know me. Like, why the fuck do you think she was, like, skipping up to you? Because she joined you in a song? Like, no, dude.
Yeah. She gets giddy. Like you picture a girl who hasn't seen a friend in a long time. They do that. They get super giddy and, like...
He says that. He says she ran up to me like... Yeah. All right, we'll get to that.
But I guess the 15-year-old in him didn't understand it. Or, just doesn't. It's very strange. It's a frustratingly strange wall of his inability to like picture other people's motivations. I've called it empathy in the past. Maybe empathy is not the right word, but he can't picture where they're coming from in so many ways with certain people.
I obviously said it, a number of times. I think it's the self-confidence issue, and that he just cannot wrap his head around why anybody would want him. I don't think it has anything to do with empathy. I think he understands why they're the way they are. He just cannot understand why anybody, like, even when like just little simple acts of kindness make him fucking tear up. Like, he just cannot grasp why people would care about him. Because he, fucking for 3 years, he's, kicked around in the dirt like he was a fucking piece of garbage.
Well, not only that, but the story continues. Not that he's kicked around so much at the university. I mean, he has reasons to have his confidence built up, but it's not like he's got a whole bunch, some core network that loves him like a family does or anything like that. Besides Sim and Willem, who are his buddies, and, not like a mom or something like that.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's psychologically damaged, and it makes more sense for the story for him to not be real good with understanding, that people would give a shit about him, like, given what's happened to him. It makes sense, but it's also incredibly frustrating to read. But then the only other part I had is he goes up and he starts looking for Denna, and then you get his psychological scars really rearing their head with his, do not hope, it said, do not dare hope that any woman could burn as brightly as the voice that sang the part of Eowyn. He's ruled by that part of his brain, like with women.
Well,
especially with Denna.
And you kind of skipped over it too with the woman that comes over and she's hitting on him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a moment ago. And I was gonna say, man, there was a moment here, really, really perfect for you if you were in the scene, where he asks, how do I look? And they could have really been like, oh no, yeah, I took a drink of water and straightened my cloak. Now I must go find my Eowyn and offer my earnest thanks. How do I look?
Like a giant nerd, you're wearing a cloak.
Hey man, hey, Kvothe, just leave the cloak.
Yeah.
Just leave the cloak. Comb your hair, leave the cloak.
Yeah.
But instead, Willem's, what does it matter? What does it matter, dude? You don't get it. Like, because they were just screwing with him about the councilman's daughter, and he's trying to play the high card, like he's oh yeah, somehow I doubt that a quick romp behind the bar was what she had in mind. He's like trying to play like he's keeping her nobility, or spreading her nobility towards them, where it's like, dude, she's hot and she was coming on to you.
Yeah, well, and then a book later, he's just like fucking running through every girl in town, fucking slaying shit, and then he's definitely left that oh yeah, like she would want to do that, like girls would ever want to have a one night stand. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's great. It's great though because he's actually defensive, and that's it fits the character. You know what I mean? Because he has that confidence in his own his own perception of what he's capable of. Plus, and he's defensive as well because we even get let in that he doesn't understand women. So he's also part of it is he's just trying to defend his own ignorance.
Well, and two, it gives you that a perfect example of his insecurity and his lack of self-esteem, and that he sees himself as low class as far as as a partner would be, because he talks about her like, did you notice she's a nobleman's daughter or whatever she is? Like, he's like, she's above my station. She's too good for me. And, like Sim and Will, they're obviously, they're not from, they haven't had the background that he has had. So they don't see themselves that way, but they don't even see Kvothe that way.
Well, and what they're
definitely does.
And what they're also emphasizing is like, dude, you just murdered the room.
Yeah. Like,
you just scored 80 points for the team that she's rooting for, dude. Like, go, like you take the spoils, bro. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, it'd be like, it'd be like a rock star sitting there, like, oh yeah, like that girl really wanted me after I just fucking rocked out in front of everybody at Madison Square Garden. Like, that girl would want me. Her dad is the CEO of Apple. Like she would want someone like me, a rock star.
What's really funny about that is like if she heard him say that, be like, yeah, not now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just look like a huge dork, man. So no.
Yeah. No, he's right.
Now you're right.
You just fucking killed it.
Well, that kind of goes back to that.
Fucking dry as the Sahara.
That's. I was gonna say that kind of goes back to what it comes down to is like if you believe you can't have it, then yeah, you're not gonna get it.
So if I can go back to when Kvothe is looking around for Denna and that voice is in his head about hope, I think that beyond just women though, like that feeling for Kvothe, especially as he is the narrator, Coat, that feeling from him, that voice, even though I don't know that we hear it again, seems to, really, really come through a lot in this book. That he doesn't, it explains a lot about Kvothe's character if you hadn't thought about, what he went through in Tarbean of not having any hope, day to day, thinking you're going to die. That ingrains, especially if you're a little kid, and so, even though he can't help it, even though he's just murdered the room, he still thinks there's no hope.
Yeah, it's a really interesting interplay because of everything he's capable of. It imbues in him all this confidence of what he can accomplish, but always goes back to that hard reality of living on the streets and everything can be taken from you in an instant, right? Pike and his friends can show up. I mean, and there's all these different examples of it. What he's doing here, I like so much because it is, again, bringing us back to that part of who Kvothe is. It's also pretty great that when he first is reunited with Denna, he does what he's going to do for the rest of the books with Denna, is he's going to search for her, she's going to search for him. And they're both going to give up and then find each other. Yeah, I mean, he does it here. It does it in the first, and the fact that they find each other through a song.
He does it when he first meets her. He does it there too. I mean, like when he's like looking for her.
Yeah, I was wondering what you are doing here. There's also that, it's like they stumble on each other at all times.
I'm talking about like when he was going to leave. Magnets. When he's saying his buys and he looks around, it's like, well, she's not here, and then turns around and there she is. Yeah, it's constant theme. They're attracted to each other, but they're they can't find each other when they need each other a lot of times. But
it's so great too because that element is not forced. I mean, yeah, it's a motif that continuously comes back around, but you kind of have to you have to even kind of make the connection because it's something that is a subtle sort of she's never around. She's always kind of she's always floating around somewhere. And it just makes her so much more desirable, man.
Yeah, and then the same thing continues on when he does finally find her, and he's awkward as shit, and he stumbles all over in his own words, and, I don't know.
He gets it. He gets it together. But actually, I actually thought that was quite clever because I've always kind of thought the whole court, the bowing and the dancing that you see in these movies, I always thought it was so like, what are they doing? Why are they doing all this? But then it actually does make sense in the sense.
Yeah, you kind of like that stuff, don't you? It does make sense to you.
But then suddenly it makes sense where it's like this dude can't compose himself, so now just do what you can't, what you're supposed to do here. So now you can keep yourself together, and it looks like you can keep yourself together. For all the eyes around you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that was pretty much it on 56. Let you guys add any little last comments.
Nope.
I don't think so.
All right.
Okay, then chapter 57 is called The Parts That Form Us. So in this chapter, Bast interrupts Kvothe, it seems, as it seems like maybe Kvothe pauses to figure out how he's going to describe Denna. And so Bast kind of jumps in and takes a crack at it and starts by saying that she has perfect ears. But then he goes on to say that her nose is crooked and her face is narrow and not a perfect beauty. And so it seems to throw Kvothe off. And He's off put by it, and he continues to struggle describing her, stopping and tearing part of Chronicler's page out, and then finishing up his description pretty matter-of-factly.
I like this chapter, and for basically Bast and Kvothe's kind of interactions with each other. I like the fact that Rothfuss put that in there with Bast, sitting there kind of calling him out. Like, you say everybody's fucking pretty, but I've seen that girl. Like, she's got a fucking crooked nose. And,
yeah, he definitely knocks him down. He's like, dude, she ain't that great. I don't know. That's kind of how it reads to me, where it's kind of, he's like, dude, she's not. I mean, well, and he even goes as far as like, I'm kind of like an expert on this. Which you get the feeling like this dude has been around for like thousands of years or whatever, right? Because he's of the Fae. So it sounds like he does have.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, but yeah, it's, I don't know. Go ahead.
But yeah, so like he starts off with like, did you talk to her? And Kvothe, of course I talked to her. There would be no story if I hadn't. Telling that part is easy, but first I have to describe her. I'm not sure how to do it. And he's like, hey, we get the nugget where Bast is like, I've seen her once. So we know that Bast meets Kvothe and is around Kvothe, or at least he's in the back. Well, even Kvothe is like, right, you did. So Kvothe and Bast meet each other before shit goes down. That's our biggest clue that they're together before the fucking hammer drops. But then he's like, she had perfect ears, perfect little ears, like they were carved out of something. Which is great because it's like this dude's he does not have a way with words. He's not a poet. He's not like Kvothe as far as that goes. He's like, they were like made out of something.
I like
and
how
ears.
I like how they both kind of like Chronicle like uncharacteristically completely stops and is like kind of like is like, did I write that down right? Did you say ears? Like her ears? Like huh? And he just tries to keep going on about it, and then Chronicler's like, yeah, or I mean Kvothe even like, all right, we got it. We got the ear thing that you're into. Okay. We'll just move on.
It's such a such a weird thing to be into.
No, he
like,
really,
those fucking sexy ass ears.
He really emphasizes it too, because he's like, you know how hard it is to find a pretty girl with the right sort of ears, and Chronicler's like, no, man, no. I really don't.
I don't know.
And he's just like, well, then you'll just have to take my word for it. They were exceptionally fine. Like,
yeah, Chronicler was representing the 99% in that conversation.
Well, and Kvothe
ears? No,
Kvothe kind of goes with it too, because he's like, yeah, we got it. Like, I think you've struck that chord well enough, Bast. And he says it amused. So yeah, they're both kind of like, all right, ears? What the fuck? But what's really funny is we do get that in the coming chapter where he does comment on her ears, looking at her ears. So,
but he was talking about her ability to remember things, to hear the music and remember them, not like the physical description of her ears.
Yes, but
and her thing is like, that's the first time someone said it while actually looking at my ears. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you saying
she knows? She knows she
saying
has perfect ears.
Your imperial P-Tang looks like an ear? I don't even know what you're referencing.
She knows her ears are exquisite. They're exceptionally fine. And that's why she covers them up, usually, with her long hair.
Why?
Because
like that's the first
because
time.
But anybody walks in a room and her ears are exposed, they can't handle it. They're too fine. They're too exceptional.
That's why they have to look away. It's like looking at the sun.
Yeah. Well, that's why she has to do the knots. So they're brought to the knots instead of her ears, because her ears have a power like Great Alcenti-ish type of power, where they hold control over you. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's got those GD. She's got those Great Alcenti ears.
Yeah. I get it. You guys ever seen a girl with a really nice set of ears?
Yeah, all of them.
So I can't stop looking at them.
We talked about this before. It's really more so like that they're not big and floppy and like out. I mean, that's for anybody. Anybody that has like gigantic ears, you're like, wow, or cauliflower ear or something that noticeable. Outside of that, it's like, don't look weird.
I don't know,
You know
man.
what I'm saying? It's not.
I like a really big floppy set of ears that are always out, personally.
Yeah.
Big Dumbo guy?
He watched Dumbo as a kid and got sexually aroused, and it's fucking changed his whole game up as he got older.
Wow.
It's fucking stuck with him.
Wow.
Uh-huh. I like giant ears.
Very
I like to smother myself in ears. I motorboat ears.
That is really weird. I mean, there's some soft mixed in with kind of hard.
The visual image of motorboating ears just fucking made me laugh. Fuck, it's so weird.
It is. It's interesting that it even goes here. You know, like it goes in this direction. Now that I think about it, like that they even like that Bast has a thing for it, and that they're all talking about it. But I said that before. I've read stories where there is a focal point on a woman's ears. Like,
I think it was Rothfuss. It was Rothfuss like testing the water, putting the toe in. He's like, "Is my ear fetish weird? Let's see.
Let's see how much
See how people react to it."
He's doing it with cloaks. He's doing it with ear fetishes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. He keeps dipping his toe in his weird fetishes.
So it's another merch thing. We'll have like, it's hard to wear a fake. So now I think of like Charlie's uncle with the fake hands that he wears over his hands. So if you have like too small ears, you could wear nicer ears over your ears.
Well, according to Fitch, you need a shirt with Dumbo ears. A girl
big
with fucking
floppy.
Dumbo
Yeah,
ears.
Huge ones.
The bigger the better, huh, Fitz?
Yeah, that's right. But you guys,
is it like a sign of? It's just like a sign of not fertility. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, a sign of like being able to provide for children.
Do you know what a good listener that mom would be? Hey, do you? All right. So back on a more serious note, like, did you guys get the sense that because Bast is like, no, she wasn't that hot, Kvothe, that it totally ruins, because I thought Kvothe's description was going well, and he totally sidesteps himself and second guesses himself, and
I definitely like the tension between them. There's a definite like Kvothe stops, kind of looking at him like, what? What'd you say about my girl, bro? Like, it's interesting. They're back and forth. Yeah, it's interesting. And it does stop him in his tracks. And then he has to like kind of rethink the whole thing. I think, I think
he can't gather himself. He can't gather himself the rest of the time.
Well, it's one of those things like you don't want to tell like your friends that their girlfriends are ugly. Like I would never say, the truth about your guys' wives.
Jesus, what the fuck?
Like that would be over the top.
What's wrong with you?
You just keep that down. You just
By the
bury that
way,
down.
my wife has exceptionally nice ears.
Yes,
great ears.
My wife has giant ears.
Not as good a listener as you might think, but really nice looking ears. But
but no, I didn't think.
This is so weird.
I didn't. Oh God, fucking Fitz's wife getting her ears motorboated at night. It'd be a terrible experience.
No, so I do definitely appreciate what Kvothe's struggling with here, where he's like, I can't. This has been happening for we're 400, almost 420 pages in, and he's been building to being able to describe this woman. He's been trying for a while and like building himself into it, and so now we get like now he's going to do it, and he even has to rip up a page. He has to like threaten Chronicler with his eyes. I mean, he has to like even when he finally does get something down, he almost like still wants to like rip it up. Like he can't do her justice. Which I mean, all of this speaks to his infatuation with her. That's just unquenching. It's on another level.
So yeah, he's madly in love with her. I did Fitz though. I did not get that it was Bast that threw him off. I think it's she throws him off. And
yeah.
And we see that through their interactions together. He's always doubting himself, thinking he made the wrong move, questioning everything he says to her. So I don't think it was Bast saying she had a crooked nose or whatever. Like, I don't think that threw him off. It's just I think they're what it points towards is something really bad happened, and now that when he goes and tries to talk about her, I think the fact that he might have something where he's trying to explain why he did what he did, and in order to really understand it, you have to understand how madly, deeply in love he is with this chick. And so I think that's the trouble that he's having, is trying to grasp how he he sees her in his mind.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And if I could take that just a step further real quick, Tim. So because of his own insecurity now of how much he's in love with her, okay? I'm taking into account what the things that have just come up, okay? With the him calling her beautiful, and I'm thinking that he thinks she's very beautiful, but it may have something to do with her casting a spell with her Yillish knots. Just leave that as an aside. So whatever has happened is a bad thing, or at least a catastrophic thing in his own life between him and her. And so now that he's having to describe her, and Bast immediately jumping in and saying, well, she wasn't that beautiful. I don't want to put it all on Bast that he's thinking that is throwing him off, that she's not beautiful, but maybe it's throwing a wrench in his shit, because what he's really realizing is, man, she had me fucked up. And maybe this is all just a maybe, that she's the one who maybe betrayed him, and she had him on a hook. You know what I'm saying? She had him on that line and was kind of dragging him along, and him realizing from just what Bass said that she wasn't actually that beautiful. Maybe he's kind of realizing, because he does say it. Well, I gotta say, other people thought she was beautiful too. And she was at least pretty, but oh no, she was most beautiful to me. Like all that shit. Kind of what it, to me, at least when I was listening to it this time, I was on a wave of thinking that maybe Kvothe is realizing that Denna had him over a barrel the whole time.
Well, there are some qualifiers that get thrown in, right, in terms of, there's more to it than just the surface and that type of stuff. And I think there is something to be said for those Yillish knots as well. But a lot of it goes back to the situation, how young he was when he first met her, the great connection they had from the beginning, and the great connection they always have. So, yes, he's under a spell. He's in love with her. He's like madly in love with her. Couple things that I took away, though, is one, fella sounds more attractive physically. Right? I mean, that's kind of how it reads to me. That's one side of it. But speaking to what you were just speaking of, something that reminded me of Elodin was Bast's description of, she smiled at me, and it's like she smiles into you, or something. I don't remember. Yeah, she smiled at me. It had a sort of, it went right down into you, if you understand me. So that gave me a feeling like what you hear with Elodin when he speaks, and these there's I don't think it's just Elodin. There's a few characters that have those abilities.
Well, you get that in real life. Like if you're hanging around a girl that's, you think is, when you first see her, you don't think much of it, or you're like, she's all right, she's not bad looking. But then she can hang out and she can be one of the boys, and like legit one of the boys, not like a girl that like, I like football and that doesn't really understand football and is just like playing a role, but like can actually hang out and be one of the boys. Like she can go from, when you first see her, she's a 7, and then starts hanging out, and you're like, this chick's fucking cool as fuck. She's like a 9. Like, she amps up because of her charisma, her personality, her, like, especially for him, like, she knows all these different plays. She's able to sing. She can
play music. Keep up with him. She can keep up with his shit, and they have that back and forth, and they have so much in common. I mean, that's what we've been talking about. Is like clearly they had similar backgrounds. Both don't have somewhere to go back to. Yeah, it's they have a lot that holds them together. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a large part of the attraction. Beyond, he obviously thinks she's good looking. I mean, from the first time he saw her, before he ever spoke to her, he thought she was attractive.
It's interesting that he toys with these ideas of like, if I say this, it'll seem trivial. If I say that, it just seem like I'm just trying to be poetic. And then he actually says her eyes were dark as chocolate, dark as coffee. And it's like, I mean, that's like, that feels like just like superficial, you know what I mean? But I think that's very intentional because it is difficult, and it speaks to how difficult it is to, describe someone physically, which is what's so great about what Patty's done thus far. He hasn't tried to do that, so it's been left to our open minds. And even when he does attempt to do it, we still get to see Denna in the way that we see her.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, if you say this girl had brown hair and she was beautiful, like everybody's just gonna picture their own brown hair beautiful girl, and like you don't really need to do any more than that. But like if you're like, her eyes were perfect oval, she had asymmetry in her ears, and a nose that was like pointy, and like then like you start like trying to nail down every little point, and her jawline and her fucking hair was done like this, and like once you try to narrow it down, then you just start losing it, because then you make it too specific in someone's mind, where then they're trying to paint a picture of this girl instead of just picturing what they think is a beautiful girl that has this color hair. And so he does a good job in not giving too much detail.
Well, it's really interesting in how he does it here too, because he does do that to a degree, but he says her jawline is strong but delicate. So it's like you can still sort of picture her a little bit further, but those are just positive qualities, So, and then like with her lips, and just it's interesting how he does it, because he does it in ways that are, well, again, it's coming from the mind and the mouth of a guy that's madly in love with her as well. So that all you have to take, and that's what's great about Bast here, is he's checking that to a degree. He's making us recognize that these descriptions are really, again, someone who's under a trance.
Yeah. You guys are making excellent points, because as I read through it this time, or listened to it, I wanted Kvothe to finish describing her and not be distracted. But when he gathers himself, what seems like maybe he's not gathered, that he's, what I first took as that he was dancing around himself. He actually did gather himself, didn't he? And said, as an author, as a great describer, let's leave it to these matter of fact points, and let the reader visualize what she actually was, because it is a matter of perspective, as everything is.
Well, and to be able to take it further, I love like this type of judicious, description of, no matter where she stood, she was in the center of the room. Do not misunderstand. She was not loud or vain. We stare at a fire because it flickers, because it glows. The light is what catches our eyes. But what makes a man lean close to a fire has nothing to do with its bright shape. What draws you to a fire is the warmth you feel when you come near. The same was true of Denna. And then as he tries to continue, his expression is twisted. Like he can't. He tries to go further and he can't do it. It's like everything he tries to say. And then he even says, "Dude, what am I doing?" Like he's like, "What good can come of this? I can't do any of this." And I think that's when he gets up and like tears the paper and everything.
But yeah, I didn't have any other points on that chapter.
I had one thing, and I don't know if there will be much to come of even bringing it up, but I thought it was kind of interesting because it speaks to Kvothe and kind of where he's at now. But when he's hemming and hawing and trying to deal with the idea of description, says there's no sense worrying, I suppose. Kvothe said at last, "If I ruin this as well, it will be a small thing as far as the world is concerned." So, I mean, in his mind, it's like, if I ruin this, it's like, I guess, again, that just speaks to he's at fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the state of the world.
He's clearly responsible, or at least he believes himself responsible. And it's not like Bast ever corrects him when he says, like, this is all my fault. Bast isn't like, no, it's not your fault. So, yeah. I think it's clearly he's at least plays a huge role in shit getting fucked up.
Okay, so chapter 58 is titled Names for Beginnings. In this chapter, Kvothe gives an extensive description of how he felt when he sees Denna and specifically when she smiles at him. Denna and Kvothe exchange niceties and flirt even as her date, Savoy, shows up. They both kind of pretend that they have never met before. Kvothe believes Denna doesn't remember him. She tells him her name is Diane, and Kvothe then, after they have pretty good back and forth, Kvothe awkwardly says goodbye, or maybe not even awkwardly, but he just second guesses himself over and over. So then in chapter 59, all this knowing, Kvothe heads back downstairs and he gets all drunk with his buddies, Sam and Willem, and they head back to the university.
I think she definitely does not pretend that she doesn't know Kvothe. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Like, she knows who he is. That's why she goes running over to him. He just does not interpret things correctly, and he constantly misinterprets her signals. I mean, I think her signals are pretty fucking clear for the reader, but for him, they are not clear at all. Like, he misinterprets all of them.
She at least pretends for Savoy, right?
I wouldn't say that.
Well,
like, I think she doesn't bring up the fact that she knew him. I don't think she plays at. They're playing at they do this little, every time they talk to each other, they do this little dance. They're doing like a dance with each other where they're choosing the words very judiciously, and they're trying to say the right thing at the right time. They're trying to be clever. They're trying to be witty. They seem to be overly concerned with every word that fucking comes out of their mouth, especially Kvothe. Less so her, but she's also a little bit like that.
It's a mix of like one-upmanship and just playfulness.
Yeah.
Like they're playing a game.
Well,
yeah.
I agree. But why I say that she pretends, at least for Savoy, is because of the whole name thing. Because she's like, oh, well, Savoy will give me your name. And
think about it like this. I mean, what's interesting to me, because when she runs up to him, it's clear to us as readers that she remembers him. But the fact that he doesn't act, the way that he acts in reaction, makes her think that he might not remember her.
Right.
Right? No, I mean, wouldn't that be the impression that would be given?
I agree.
So he backfires on himself.
I thought when she first runs up to him, I did not think that she was pretending that she didn't know him. Kvothe immediately assumes that she wouldn't remember him for no good reason. She runs up to him and gushes over, like she has to stop herself before she tackles him, basically.
Well, he, in his mind, when he first sees her, he dreads the idea that she wouldn't remember him. And then he has no.
Well, no, it doesn't say
doesn't
that.
have
It
a lot
was
of
the
self-worth.
reason he didn't think she remembered him is because she didn't say his name, and she didn't mention their time together. But neither did he.
No, but I mean, he thinks that in his mind. He's like, would she even remember me? The awkward boy she had known for a few days so long ago. So he thinks that when he sees her. I mean, he goes through this whole thing when he first sees her before she looks up. But then her reaction, what we read, is she absolutely remembers him. But he doesn't see that.
No, and like she doesn't have the same issues that he does, because later on when she just matter-of-factly talks about their time together, when she was like, you've already said the 7 words. You remember when we first met and you asked me, and then he was like, oh, I didn't think you remembered. And she's like, what? Like it to
like,
her, it hadn't occurred. She was like, of course we know each other. Like, why wouldn't we know each other? Like, she's not as in her head as Kvothe is in his head. She just felt like they knew each other and all that. And then Kvothe was like, well, you didn't mention it. And she's like, well, you didn't mention it either. So I guess I could have thought the same thing. But she's not that insecure.
Yeah, this is, again, one of those examples where he thinks too much, and he worries too much, and he dreads too much, and he gets in his own way of things being smoother than they could have been. Or what? Yeah.
But
and it actually goes well. The conversation actually is a good back and forth between them, but it doesn't just stop with Kvothe thinking that she doesn't know him. It continues on to Kvothe thinking that, he's messed up, not said the right things, and continues to, he's like, I just had to get out of there towards the end because he thinks that he's, saying all these silly things.
He's always like that with her. I mean, their interactions are always great. Like, I mean, it's like, man, you guys clearly have a great rapport, but he just,
it's very natural.
He's so insecure and like always self-doubting. Like, I don't read that he's doing anything wrong, and I don't read that she thinks that. She clearly doesn't. She goes, looks for him, and she's excited when she sees him, and so she doesn't think that, but he's not picking up on any of the clues.
Oh, you know what? And that major clue that she gives, he blatantly says, I didn't know what that, when Savoy grabs her arm and like leads her back to the table, like, this girl's mine. She like looks back at Kvothe and gives him a shrug with her eyes that to me clearly say like, sorry, dude, it's not what you think or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, which I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah. He misreads it completely.
Yeah. And every fucking guy, every other guy reading the book, well, any guy that's like, seen a girl with a dude that she's not really into, like they know that look. It's like, it's not my dude. He thinks he's my dude, but he's not my dude.
Right. That's exactly right, Dan.
Yeah, it's again very telling that he even says, I had no idea or something like that. Like he literally had no idea what the look meant. It's like, dude. Well, but yeah, again, he's young,
again, he's 15, but it's a different. I mean, they're hanging out at bars, they're drinking, they're getting drunk. They're a more advanced 15 than our world 15.
So when he first like runs into her and she stumbles into him, that whole thing where he describes his feeling like ice splintering under your feet and like the fracturing, it's pretty great, man. Like he's got he can wax some poetic shit, but like the imagery, it all ties together really, really nicely. It's a really cool description.
Yeah.
So I can say, I'll just say this: the imagery was nice, but I didn't relate to the actual feeling. I don't know if that's just me being like hard-headed or something, but like, how did he describe what it actually made him feel like when he
said he felt like the ice. He felt like the ice cracking.
Because
and the only thing that kept him from breaking apart was, all the pieces were pushing against each other. I don't know. I've never felt like that. No girl, no girl's ever like tripped me up like that.
Yeah, like maybe that she could destroy him? I'm just trying to understand, like, is it
I
that
can
he's
understand,
so in love, or could she destroy him?
I think it speaks to like ultimate vulnerability. Like this is
maybe that
his biggest dream, his biggest hope or dream, and at the same time could crush his fucking spirit. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because I haven't had that feeling either. But the way
that makes sense.
Like just the imagery itself, I enjoy just the idea. It's one of those things that, like, if you have ever stood on a lake where it's fine to walk out and then you start to feel it where it's not, and that unsuredness, or whatever the word would be, the uncertainty, and like the pending threat of what could happen. But then he even checks that and says, it's not like she was underneath me and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm the ice and I'm fracturing. And just the idea that it's all holding together by like just the force itself being pushed against each other. I just like the imagery. I just thought it's a really cool thing to sit with.
I think you're right on with that. And I actually can relate to that. A vulnerability to a woman. That makes more sense. That it's not. I think I got wrapped up in the description of the fracturing ice and only being.
It's a delicate. It's a hard thing to describe. It's a delicate thing he's really trying to describe. It's a difficult feeling and situation and like an awareness that he's trying to.
It's fucking deep, is what it is.
Yeah, it is, and then he's doing it on a surface level, which is physical that we can. So he's pulling on all those things and putting them together into a feeling that is palpable for the reader. It's impressive. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and I like that when he's talking about all the things that his mom taught him about chivalry and that kind of stuff. Like, that's a great way to fall back on when you don't know what to say. I like that aspect because I think it even applies to today, even though we don't have these extravagant fucking, bowing down and fucking kissing the hand and all that kind of stuff. We still have a semblance of that. Like, I will tell people, like, if you want to know how to go up to strangers, read like, question-based selling and understand, like, I would have routines when I was younger where I would go in and I would have just like a set of questions I would ask. Yeah. And the questions weren't really important. It was just the icebreaker. It was just, I would ask questions and question until I found until I hit a trigger, until an actual conversation could start. But like, I had my basic, routine where, I would go in and it was just icebreakers without doing what it was, the angels falling from fucking the sky, those stupid fucking pickup lines.
Well, I mean, think about what so many women have said about men that they enjoy being around. Oh, he's such a good listener. That's what you're accomplishing when you're asking all these questions. You're just getting them talking, and people like to talk about themselves, or at least like to talk, like to be in a conversation. Yeah. We had a great conversation. It was really interesting. What'd you talk about? Talk about myself.
Yeah.
I was like, talked about 100%. Was me. Oh, he's we're interested in the same things? No, you just talked.
Yeah. The reason it would work is because you're not talking about yourself, because if you're meeting a stranger, you're meeting someone for the first time, they don't want to know about you. They want to talk about themselves. They want to tell you about them. And so you would give them that opportunity, and you would just ask questions until you found like the hot button, like something they wanted to talk about, where you found their interest.
It's interesting because there's a few things that can be done there. Is you can talk about what they want to talk about, or you can find something that they want to talk about that you also are interested in talking about.
Well, that's the goal. Yeah, you just keep asking questions until a conversation can start. But like that's what I get out of that is like, because that's how I rolled. It was just that it was a routine in the beginning, but the routine was to get you into a conversation where you could be real. It wasn't like like the pickup fucking artist stupid shit where
it's people letting their guard down.
Yeah, where you're just playing a fucking role and you're not being yourself. It was no, you have a routine. The routine is to get you into a conversation so you can see if you guys connect and you guys have anything in common, if it's worthwhile pursuing. But you have to get past that initial awkwardness of you're just going up to a stranger who you've never spoken to before, and you have to have some way of breaching that distance. And so having some kind of routine, whether it's like this, where, in the book, it's this chivalry aspect where you're bowing, you're kissing the hand and that kind of thing. It's to get the ball rolling. And so I think it even pertains in the world today. You always have to have that way of getting the ball rolling.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. Good comparison. I had a similar note where it's like, this is one of the first times I've been able to fully understand the utility in court manners. Like, it's always seemed kind of just otherworldly to me whenever I've seen this in movies, where it's just like, what are these guys doing? I mean, it's like to a degree, it always seemed like everybody's just patting themselves on the back for being wealthy, right? Everybody's dressed up to the nines, and let's all just move around to this music that's being played for us. We look at how much money we have, sort of situation. But it's a display of sophisticatedness, I guess, and manners in itself, and just showing how to act in the situation, right? And for Kvothe, why it's so great in this moment is he can't pull himself together, so just do what he needs to do to then get to where he's comfortable, and it works.
Yeah, just gives him that beat, that breath where he can fucking overcome being tongue-tied and give himself, a couple breaths to figure out what he wants to fucking say.
It's great too, man, because they go right back into what has been their thing all along, which is he goes looking for her, she goes looking for him, nobody finds each other, they both give up, now they find each other, and then they both play that same thing where it's like, where have you been? Or like, are you up here alone? It's like, well, I was alone. And it's like, well, I've been looking for you for hours. It's like they're both looking for each other. It's just great how they always plays out that way.
Their interactions, like they speak in verse to each other. They quote fucking lines, and she knows the lines that he's quoting. She knows the plays that he's quoting from. And so she's able to demonstrate that she's his counterpoint. Like, she's a perfect counterpoint to him. Like, if you were going to invent a girl that would wrap up Kvothe, I think Rothfuss did a good job in inventing that perfect girl. Like, for whatever, complaints people have about Denna, I think if you were looking for a girl that was going to fucking trip up him, she checks all the boxes that you would want. Dude.
She's perfect. And what I love about their whole interaction here too is he shows he has nothing to offer her, so he gives her the best thing he's accomplished, which is his talent pipes. Here you go, take them.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I can't
without question, without even thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he explains, like, no, this is what I have to offer you. Unless you want my loot, but I'll give you either of these things. And it's like, Jesus, dude. Like, she's like, whoa, what the? Like, so taken aback because she's like, wait. Then she kind of has to, like, step back and look at him like, I think this dude's serious. And then she has that great line where it's like, I think you might actually be a remarkable person or something like that. I think you might be a wonderful
person. Yeah.
It's great the way that's stated, because how he builds to it, that line is quite meaningful rather than just being, something that you would just say at a different point.
And it's not, fucking scummy. It's not like he's like fucking doing it to get her in bed. It is just a genuine offer with expecting nothing in return.
Yeah.
It's just his appreciation for what she did and his expression of, what she is to him.
It's a great act to show a lot about the two of them. Because what we've talked about many times, where Kvothe seems to feel like he doesn't have things to offer people. So he has this low self-worth. but they have this connection of what they both just accomplished together. And she's kind of revealing she's not used to people being this generous freely without something to be expected in exchange.
Yeah, Kvothe definitely feels deep down, from what we can tell, that he owes her this, or that he feels that he can atone for what she's given him at this point. Of course, it may just be that he's so in love with her, he wants to give her something. But it seems like Kvothe genuinely feels like they're as much her pipes as his.
I think it also speaks to what Dan said in the past, which is like he dreams big. He'll go all in, man. Like I think this kind of, at least to me, it kind of speaks to that, where he's like, "This is it. This is my world. Here it is."
Yeah,
I think that's part of it.
It wasn't like he was going looking for her and like, how can I repay her? I'll give her my fucking talent pipes. It was just like in that moment. And it's also brought up when he's like, I'll do anything. And then Savoy is like, well, be careful. She'll ask you to go get a leaf from the laughing tree or the singing tree or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, I would do it. And he's like, and I meant it. Like he legit would do anything for this fucking chick.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because he's surprised to find that he actually meant it.
Yeah.
That's kind of rare, man, to like read. When I read that, I'm like, that's kind of a rare moment, at least, I don't know, for me, where you get that. There's like another element of experience that's accomplished there, where it's, you're, I mean, we're in his mind. I get that and all, but that was pretty great to get that sort of epiphany moment.
So I'd like to kind of put this in perspective, like that this is the second time Kvothe has even met her. But more importantly, are you guys interested at all at how drawn Kvothe is just to go find his Elohim, and how, in his own head about it, he is to find her? He doesn't even, I mean, we know it's Denna. He doesn't even know it's Denna. He wants to find that girl so bad. You know what I mean? It happens to turn out to be
Keep
Denna.
Keep in mind, though, like, when he's going to perform this, his fucking nuts are on the line. Like, if he doesn't get his talent pipes, he does not see any way he can continue at the university. And the university is obviously immensely important to him, because he's trying to learn things, to basically, it's in the back of his mind, but he's wanting to get revenge on the Chandrian, and he can't do that without the university, and he's about to lose it, and then she comes in and saves his motherfucking ass. And so, yeah, he's going to be immensely thankful to someone who fucking saved him in that way.
Well, but I agree, yes. But so just the occurrence of the fact that he went in there, musician that he is, going in to perform one of the greatest songs that is a duet. So he went in knowing that he was going to rely on someone. He went in knowing that his nuts were on the line, so on and so forth. He could have done a number of songs by himself and at least showcased his talent. I don't think that he thought that he needed to rely on somebody else in order to survive and get his talent pipes.
It's really
no.
Interesting,
I'm not saying
though,
that he. I'm not saying
that's
that
my point.
He
that's my
needed
point.
to.
He's not saying he.
I'm not saying he needed to rely on it. I'm saying that her jumping in helped him get his talent pipes, and she just relieved a massive amount of pressure from him. So he's going to be extremely grateful for. It didn't matter who the girl was. Any girl who fucking saved him from that terrible situation, he was going to be extremely grateful. So, I think, like, when he's going to look for her, it's out of a feeling of gratefulness. It's only when he sees it's Denna that it goes to, like, a whole other level.
Well, I think it's also, I think it's not, it is gratefulness. It's also, what's really interesting, if he didn't build out the lay of Sir Savian Trailyard as much as he did, it kind of doesn't make sense that Kvothe would do a duet, given he's never played with anyone else since he was in the troupe. That's the only time. Other than that, it's always him playing by himself. We never, I don't think in the rest of the two books, he doesn't play with anybody else. I mean, he doesn't have, he doesn't play in a band, right? There's never an accompaniment outside of this one time with Denna. So it's kind of outside of character for him to do it in the first place. But Rothfuss builds up the song so much and layers out, this is the song. This is like,
Andy builds up the Aeolian as like the place where like there would be talent there to do it.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm getting at maybe is just the fact that this whole scene, not only his it being Denna, but the fact that he did delay Sir Sabian relying on somebody else to get his talent pipes, throwing it out there in a kind of a un-Kvothe type of way, leaving it to someone else to save the song. Maybe that it just lends to the mysticism of, or the whatever it is. I can't, this same coincidences that keep coming up in the book, people happening upon each other at the right times. It lends to that.
Yeah, like, like we've talked about that. Like, I don't know with Denna. Like, all the other coincidences you bring up, I don't think are coincidences. But with Denna, I don't know. I mean, could be she's there for a specific reason. It's very hard to tell. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion on, is Denna a member of the Chandrian? Is Denna a member of, this group or that group? Or like there's plenty of speculation on what the fuck's up with Denna. It's just hard to fucking pin down because there's just not enough information yet.
So I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm just every situation when we go into it where it's a coincidence when we go into it. It's nothing's when we first hear about it, like this scenario, it's a coincidence. Whether she's a Chandrian, I don't know what it is. I didn't know what it was when Chronicler happened upon him in the woods. You know what I'm saying, Dan? I'm just saying these instances come up. They may or may not be explained right away, but the happenstance is kind of a consistent theme.
Well, yeah, man.
And I think we should but I think we should look at it as more than just a coincidence.
Well, I mean,
no, I agree, and that's why we do. We do that with Chronicler.
He goes to the Mothin farm, and Denna's there. Like, what's the chances of that? I mean,
exactly.
The odds are ridiculous.
Yeah, and so like I mean, we can fucking pinpoint why Chronicler's there, and then we have good guess what that he could be part of the Emir, that he's working with Scarpy. We have good guesses on why Scarpy is going to go into that bar to fucking tell those stories. We have good guesses on a lot of different fucking characters and why they show up when they show up. With Denna, it's
a harder guess, isn't it?
It's tougher because there's not enough information yet. So I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like it could very well be that there's something under the surface. It could be she's part of a group like the Chandrian or somebody else, something else. I don't think she'd be with the Emir, but she could be part of some kind of group, or it could be some reason that she went there on purpose, that she was there specifically to help him get his talent pipes. The Mothin farm, and my gut tells me that she just happened to be at the Aeolian that night. I think the reason she was at the farm is because of her patron. I think the reason she was with the mayor is because of her patron. I think her patron is the bigger mystery than her couple chance encounters with her. I feels like Kvothe and her are just drawn to each other like magnets. there's a lot of the discussions about these things being drawn to each other, and I just think they're two of those characters that are just drawn to each other.
They do seem, like loading stones, or you know what it could be. She is a descendant of Puriel. She got that poontang.
Yeah, he's all about that. He's like Telu.
She could potentially have her
return to Puriel's poontang.
Yeah,
she could potentially have her patron at this point too, though, right? Just not saying anything.
No, I don't believe so. No.
Well, I think it's I don't know.
Based
what
on
it seems like to me is
their meeting, like in the description of her meeting her patron, like we don't see it firsthand, but we hear about it, and it does not seem like it does not seem like that that was a red herring. It seems like that was actually her first meeting with her patron, and I think that's Kvothe was supposed to meet up with Denna that day. And then the Bone Tar incident happened, and so he had to save Fella, and he got hurt, and so he wasn't able to meet up with Denna. And then Denna met her patron that night, and that's what makes me think that her patron might have had something to
do with the Bone Tar.
I'm more curious about her patron. I think her patron might have had something to do with the fire, and he was trying to get Kvothe out of the way, and then he is also putting her in positions where she's interacting with Kvothe, and at times in places that he wants.
Yeah,
her patron's even got her singing a song, making Haliax a heroic figure, Lanre a heroic figure, knowing that this would be like fucking salt in the wound of Kvothe. So I think I'm more interested in her patron than her as far as the coincidences.
So let's assume that because of that, I don't know. I could really just play 10 ways around devil's advocate around this situation. So I guess I'll just stick with it's more than a coincidence. Almost every time that Kvothe meets Denna, and I'll include the first time. The way that they happen upon each time is just, it gets more and more, the happenstance of it gets more and more less likely, I guess.
You would think like if it was all part of a plan, like by her, that he would.
I don't mean by her.
I know. I'm saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, if it was a part of a plan by her, and she was like fucking trapping Kvothe, and she was like fucking honeypotting him,
yeah,
that he would have more animosity towards her. That when he was describing her in the last chapter, that it wouldn't be like this romantic fucking, oh, this girl's so fucking perfect and I can't fucking describe in words. It'd be like, no, fuck that bitch. She fucking bitch, right? Played games with me. She fucked my mind up. That fucking whore. Like, he would have some animosity, but he does not seem to have that. And so I don't get the impression through 2 books. I would be very shocked if she is fucking manipulating him. I think they are both being manipulated.
Yeah.
I think they're both being manipulated.
I think there's a good chance of that. I think they're both being utilized by a larger power and being wielded and brought together for reasons that we have yet to find out. But
that's
to crash the world, apparently, open the door, to open the box, to use Pyrrhus Poontang to open that lackless box and lackless door and let out the shamelmen that stumble out of her vagina.
The Skrill.
Yeah, we're just waiting to find
so the
Skrill,
are just
Tonto's
really
fucking
crabs.
Supervillain is.
Fits. The Skrill are crabs.
Giant crabs. Imperial's Poontang.
That's gross. Yeah, that got really gross. I thought it was going to,
You always got to fucking ruin it.
You're
always having a fun time.
Well, I was making
you take it to some gross level.
I was making the connection, and then as soon as I said it out loud, I was like, ugh, that's gross.